That's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. I get the question a lot, like, how do you have it all?
You never have it all.
You never have it all.
No.
Like, if you're acing it at work, you're typically, failing at home or vice versa. So it's about ultimately having a balance between the two, which I think I struggle with every day. So I don't want anyone listening to this to think that anyone has it figured out.
Welcome back to the interview with Sarah Murrow. Now, let's dive into part 2 of our conversation. Let's dig in. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about you personally.
Okay.
And we've talked a lot about the workplace, but I think your career, in addition to having been with Allianz for such a long time, your leadership trajectory and being part of the organization in so many different parts of the world. Tell me a little bit about that. What did that look like for you?
So I joined Allianz Trade right out of university, right out of college, my undergrad. I started in an entry-level customer service role. And I think maybe you and I can talk a little bit about the other similarity that we have in that we were discussing before the recording started, that I actually applied for a job with Allianz Trade, or Euler Hermes as it was branded then.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hermes, like Hermes?
No, I wish.
Are you walking around with all the beautiful scarves and everything?
No, I know that would be lovely. When I was the UK CEO, I also used to get emails on LinkedIn about packages that were missing from Hermes package delivery. So, that now that we're Allianz Trade, it's simpler. It solved those issues. But I applied for a job with Allianz Trade, or Euler Hermes as it was, in November of 2003.
Okay.
And it was an entry-level role in the collections entity of the business that they were intending to build out. And I really had a great interview experience. I thought I did really well in the interview. I thought I had, a good dynamic with the hiring manager. And Karen, they didn't hire me. They didn't offer me the job.
It's incredible, isn't it?
I know.
How could that possibly happen?
I know. But and there I was thinking, wait a second, I really wanted to work there. And they're saying no to me. And I don't know if this was the tenacity. I feel like tenacity is also part of who I am.
Yes.
But I said, wait a second, no, I want to work there. So I stalked the website, found another customer service role, another entry-level role that was available in February of 2004. I interviewed again and was hired.
There you go.
So the question is, had they even offered me the first job, I probably would have accepted. But I think I really wanted to work there because they told me no at first.
Yes,
so.
but think about that. In the effort to get in there, it validated and confirmed and made it even bigger than life that this is where you wanted to go.
Yes.
That this is something that you wanted. So,
and I knew you had a similar story, right?
I did. So when I applied to go work for Citi, it was for an account manager role and for a new product that they were rolling out. And I interviewed for this position, a Chicago-based position, and had an excellent interview. And I really thought I had nailed it. And I had every expectation that the recruiter was going to call me back and say, you start on Monday. And it took a little longer than a week, which was shocking. Oh my goodness, this is my first experience with banking hiring decisions. It took almost 4 weeks. And every day I got more and more and more excited and actually had started planning on what this was going to look like for me. And then the recruiter called and said I didn't get the job. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe that I did not get that role. That was my job. And so anyway, one of the things that was so fortunate is that during the interview process, there were 2 people that were part of the recruiting, and I had an opportunity to spend more time with one of them than the other, and she was the more senior of the 2, and she had mentioned that they were doing a bigger recruiting effort across the country, and that they were having a hard time finding someone to fit into this position in Pittsburgh. And in fact, after they were done with the Chicago crew, they were going to get on a plane that night and go to Pittsburgh to go on their 3rd or 4th recruiting mission. So I knew that they'd had problems there, but I didn't know where that had ended up. And so when the recruiter called me and said, sorry, after I was done with the shock of all of that, I pulled her business card out of my wallet and I marched to the nearest payphone and called her. And I said, Pat, I can't understand this. how did I not get that job? And she goes, well, it was really a tough call, but at the end we decided to give it to an internal person. So my first experience with that. And I said, all right, well, what about that Pittsburgh position?
Good for you.
And she goes, well, we really hadn't thought about that. I said, well, did you find anybody? She goes, no. I said, well, how many trips have you made? She goes, well, it has been a very difficult search process. I said, well, here I am. You're not going to find anybody more qualified for that role than me. And I don't care if I have to move to the moon. I want that job. And she ended up supporting that, and I ended up in the role, and off we go. But it was really something, because again, for the audience and for some of our younger people who are entering that workforce right now, there will be roles that you'll encounter that just call to you. That just, whether it's a company or the role itself, it calls to you, and it's worth fighting for. It really is. And it shows something, I think, to the employer as well.
Yes, this person really wanted it. They want to be part of our organization. I will also say that the reverse is true, which is that sometimes when you don't get the role, and maybe it's not a role that calls to you, but maybe you were excited about the role and you didn't get the role, it can actually be a very wonderful thing. So some of the jobs that I have not been, the internal promotions that I've not been successful for, it at the time, it doesn't feel like a gift, but in hindsight, life was giving me what I needed at the right time to give me the right trajectory. So it's also a little bit about having faith that, things will work out. You know what I mean? That just because this opportunity doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that,
it's the end of the world.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. That sometimes what doesn't happen is as important as what does happen.
Yes.
And if you have a little bit of grace to be able to reflect on that is, it doesn't mean that you give up, and if you have opportunity to fight back, then do it. But if it's not going to work out, then figure out what the next thing is that's coming down the line. And sometimes it's even better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you had taken that role, this other role might not have been available to you because of that. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's about having, faith that things will work out.
So you joined.
So I joined.
So then what happened?
So that's 2004.
Yeah.
So I spent 12 years working my way up through the commercial department of the business. So I did client service management, client service management. I did SME commercial underwriting. I was a strategic account manager. And then the role that I've actually held the longest in my entire career, I held between 2011 and 2016, which was the head of broker management for the Americas. I also had my 2 daughters at that time, so I was on maternity leave for 6 months total of the 5 years. And really just had a wonderful opportunity to grow through the organization, to have increased responsibility. And it was a Friday, my boss at the time called me and he said, our board member in charge of a commercial in Paris is going to offer you a job in Paris on Monday. So you need to talk to your husband to see if he's willing to move to Paris. I thought, okay.
Were you surprised when he had that conversation with you?
I was really flattered that I would be considered for that role. And I didn't think I was qualified for the role. I wasn't really ready for the role. I didn't think I was qualified for the role, but I really wanted the role. It would be my first global role. It would be an international assignment. It would be such a great opportunity for me to work at our global headquarters, to have a bird's eye view of how the business runs. So I was really excited for the role. But Karen, my husband, born and raised in Baltimore, was... My background, we haven't talked about this, but I was born and grew up in Singapore. So I had a very international life early on. So moving to Paris wasn't so much of a shock for me, but talking to my husband about it and then anticipating his family's response, it was really difficult. And it was one of those situations where I think, he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't, because,
you wouldn't have been happy.
Exactly. I wouldn't have been happy. So he was really a wonderful supportive spouse, said, okay, we'll move to Paris. So in 2016, we moved to Paris, our first international assignment, and my daughters were 1.5 years and 4 at the time.
Wow.
And my husband, who was working in sales, became a stay-at-home dad because we needed a stay-at-home parent. And I would say that was probably the biggest transition for our family than moving across the Atlantic.
Sure,
Like it
right.
was really the change of roles and responsibilities. And also in Paris, the working hours are slightly different. So you go in later and you work later, which is really not conducive to having young children.
Yes.
So it was really difficult. I reflect about the year that I spent working for our global headquarters. It was such an amazing opportunity to learn and to grow professionally. It was really challenging from a personal perspective.
Yes. And it's hard to have both of those things up in the air at the same time.
And I think that that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. I get the question a lot, like, how do you have it all? And like,
you never have it all.
You never have it all.
No.
Like if you're acing it at work, you're typically, failing at home or vice versa. So it's about ultimately having a balance between the two, which I think I struggle with every day. So I don't want anyone listening to this to think that like anyone has it figured out. But it was a really difficult year in general. And then 2017, I was offered the commercial director role for our Northern Europe region, and which would moved our family to London, which was much easier. Our daughters were 2.5 and 4 at the time. We moved to an English-speaking country where it was very international as well. London is a very international city. And we loved our time there. We spent over 8 years in London. And our family really grew and thrived. My daughters came back to the U.S. this year with English accents.
Isn't that funny?
Yes,
that
I know,
so
ages
funny.
10 and 12. So just such a wonderful opportunity. The first 4 years I was there, I was the commercial director for the region, so traveled quite a lot across Europe. And then the last 4+ years, I was the CEO of our UK and Irish business. And in between, we had COVID, which was a really…
So you were in the UK during COVID?
I was in the UK during COVID.
Oh, my goodness. So another intersection for us is that I was put on an international assignment with when I was with HSBC to move to London and handle transformation of our customer experience for our division. And that was… like you, my husband, not a world traveler, grew up in Chicago, lived his whole life in Chicago. And now all of a sudden, we're going to pick up and go to London. Now, our kids were a little bit older, but our family is very tight. And this whole idea of leaving something behind was really a big decision for us. But you know what was funny? Unlike you, the person that had the biggest challenge with that whole relocation was not my husband. It was me.
Was it?
And it wasn't even the location as much as it was what was happening. So for me, I had always been in roles that have taken me all over the place. I travel almost 80% of the time. Never, if I was in an office, it was an office someplace away from my house. So this whole idea of being virtual, constant movement, all of that was very, very large in the way that I had executed my entire career up until this point. And this role was predominantly an office role. Go into the office at 8 o'clock.
Were you in Canary Wharf?
Yes.
Okay, we were right across the street.
Yes.
So.
And in fact, we took a flat right there on Canary Wharf to make it easier for me to get back and forth to the office. I could walk. And into the office every day, come back from the office every day, and see the same people, the same conversation. It was just so much the same. But the bigger issue was when I traveled, for me anyway, it gave me great flexibility because when I was away from home, I could focus all of my energy on my job. And though I was connected with the people back in my house, in my family, they weren't there. They couldn't see whether I was staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning or, banging away at this or whatever. They didn't see all of that. That was my choice on how I was going to get things done so that when I came home, I actually had more time to spend with them, actually. But with this, my husband was the one that was waiting for me to come home at the end of the day. So I didn't have the ability to do my A job at the office and then the B job at night.
Yes.
It was really absolutely incredible.
And how long were you there? Were you there during COVID, or
we arrived in the 2019?
Okay.
The late summer, early spring, or late summer, early fall, and then we came back. We were sent back home right after St. Patrick's Day in 2020. So we never made it for the 2-year assignment, but for the small amount that I was there, was really interesting. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the change that you actually were responsible for driving when you were over in Europe. And I know that one of your biggest accomplishments was putting a different type of maternity policy in place in Europe. And that I'm sure a lot of people were very excited about it, but there was some apprehension around that as well.
We have an annual survey where we have employee feedback. And one of the key messages that we heard from our teams were, they really appreciated the benefits and the support of the business. And we had seen develop in a number of other European countries a more generous paternity leave, which was not in place in the UK. And to be very candid, was really not the norm in the UK. If you look at the UK as a country, it's unlike the Nordic countries, for example, where there is a much more generous and more equal maternity and paternity leave. So indeed, when I was in the UK and the CEO, we implemented a measure to make paternity leave equal to that of maternity leave. Yes, which was really appreciated by a lot of people. And it was interesting. As soon as we announced it, we had a number of couples that worked for us. We had the wives emailing HR asking for more information for the husband.
Isn't that great?
Yes, it was wonderful. But surprisingly, Karen, we also received some hesitation from some individuals saying, is this needed? Is this really the right thing to do? And it was one of those points in my career where I felt so strongly that this was an important benefit that we give to our teams. You know what I mean? It was something that was really important for me to be able to give to the men in our organization, to recognize them as equal parenting.
Sure.
It was one of those things that we had to push through. But me and the management team, we felt strongly about this, and in the end, we were successful, and it's now become the norm. And a lot of the men in our organization are actually taking the paternity leave, which was the other thing I wasn't really sure about. Like, even if we put it in place, would men take
advantage of it?
And really pleased to say that they did.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think, going back to the conversation that we had a few minutes ago about your husband's journey of transitioning from, a career in sales to becoming more of the primary person at home.
He's the primary caregiver.
And that is such a transition, especially for men that have had careers. So my husband, before we ever moved to London up for that brief period, his big career transition was he was a fireman for the city of Chicago, and had gotten a few promotions and was in a management role, but then he was injured and he couldn't be on the job anymore. And so we had to make some decisions within our family what we were going to do. My job was getting more and more demanding, and we had a need for the way they work at a Chicago Fire Department is you work for 24 hours and then you're off for 48. And so for the 48 hours that he was home when he was working, that was great. We had coverage for the kids, and they weren't babies anymore. They were, in grammar school and starting in high school, but important years nonetheless.
Very formative years.
And so what we decided is, instead of having to find somebody, which was really difficult to stay with them for that 24-hour period where I might be away and he was at the firehouse, that he was going to take a step back and become their primary caregiver. And I have to say that putting him in that role changed everything for us. It changed everything. The relationship that he has with my kids is so different than the relationship that I had with my dad. And I think about just how far we've come as a society to allow that to happen. It it's beautiful. It really is.
It really is. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the relationship that my husband, Ben, has with my two daughters is nothing like the relationship that I had with my dad.
Yeah.
And my girls really view us as equal parents.
Yes.
Whereas I used to ask my mom a question so that she could ask my dad. It was almost like we all spoke the same language, but like I almost needed her to interpret, to translate the question to something my dad would understand. Whereas, it is my husband and my daughters are so close, and it's really heartwarming. Sometimes I feel left out, to be very honest.
I get it. I understand. I understand.
They do their things. They have their routines. But it is a lovely gift. And I think it's so selfless, to be honest. I mean, the way that he looks after the girls and also, looks out for me when I'm traveling or things like that. It's really, it's wonderful. And I think that he enjoes it.
Yeah. But you say something about role modeling, and for both of our boys, that's what they saw, was us being equals, that we were doing things that we loved, things that were of our choice, things that we wanted to invest in. And my son recently got married in October. Married an absolutely beautiful woman I'm so happy she's part of our family. It's just, it couldn't be better. And when I've got to get a little choked up here. When they said their vows to each other, which they wrote, they talked about the marriage that my husband and I had and how we were the gold standard.
That is
wonderful. How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, and this was not, I wasn't anticipating this, but it just, I'm certainly not going to say that every day is a bed of roses in my house. But we stick it out. You work it together. You have a commitment, The way that I've heard this talked about and the way that my husband and I often talk about it is I might be 80% today, but I might be 20% tomorrow. Right.
But he needs to be the 20% when I'm the 80% and then the 80% when I'm the 20%. And that's really what it's about. Mm-hmm. It's really about, compromising and balancing that whole family dynamic, because no one's going to be 50% every day. Like, you don't have those days.
No, it just doesn't work that way. And at the end, you've got some young beings that you're responsible for that are going to go out into the world, and they are going to model what they see. Yep. So it really has to be good. Oh, I'm so glad we had such time together.
I know. It's been wonderful.
Oh, this has been so good. Would you come back?
I would love to come back. Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. I'll ask you one last question. And that is and I'm going to target this for our younger people, because I do have a soft spot in my heart for these folks that are trying to make their way. If you had one piece of advice that you would give to someone that's either just entering the workplace or it's just here for a short amount of time, what would it be?
Every day, think about how you're going to put yourself in the growth zone, which is how you're going to make yourself uncomfortable, because it is not your natural state of being. It is not naturally what you want to do. Naturally, as human beings, we want to be comfortable. We don't want to put ourselves at risk. But God, that's not where growth happens.
No, it's not.
You have to push yourself, and you have to be intentional about how are you going to put yourself in the growth zone every day.
Yeah, and not be afraid.
Yeah.
So Sarah, when you heard the podcast is called Make Minutes Matter, what did that actually mean to you? What do you think about it when you think Make Minutes Matter?
Yeah. So I actually, because I'd watched your previous podcast, so I kind of knew this question was coming, right?
Yes.
So I thought about it both from a professional and a personal perspective. From a professional perspective, Making Minutes Matter is really around how do you as a leader, or how do I as a leader, optimize the most positive impact that I can have on the people that I come into contact with every day. Mm-hmm. Because there is very little time, and there are a lot of people, there are a lot of topics, and it's really around not just solving issues, but really how can I have a positive impact on an individual to motivate them or to give them knowledge that they didn't have before. So how can you have that positive impact? How can you make minutes matter in the workplace? But personally, it's really around the limited time that I have with my husband and my girls. How can we do that? And I will say, with an 11 and 13-year-old and phones, it is not easy, because even if you're together, there's oftentimes devices, or So one of the ways that we make minutes matter at home is by playing board games. And
this has to be some karma thing. This has to be some karma thing. So in my family, we have really never had a lot of time to play board games. Mm-hmm. But within the past 6 months, both my son, who is now married to this beautiful girl, their family is obsessed with board games. And then my youngest guy just started dating in a relatively serious relationship with this young woman whose family is also a board game. And so both of them have said to me, Mom, why don't we play games? I'm like, oh, every day is a game with you. Just let me just say that.
So you haven't played the games?
We haven't played the games. We haven't. But I think we're going there.
Yes.
I think we're going there.
Yes. Our family favorite, I will say, is Clue.
Clue.
So, yes, which
Clue.
is like, I played it when I was young with my
Me
family.
too.
Yes, it's a great game.
I'd have to say that when I was growing up, I played board games, and my favorite was the Game of Life.
Okay.
I always liked that game. With you spin the little thing. Have you ever played the Game of Life?
No, I think I've played it when I was a child, but we haven't played it recently. It's either Clue, it's typically Clue, Monopoly, which one of my daughters really dislikes, so she begrudgingly joins us.
Okay.
Or if it's a quick period of time, it's Uno.
Uno.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, God bless you and your journeys.
Thank you.
And it was wonderful having you here, Sarah.
Oh, Karen, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. God bless. Well, that brings us to the end of our inspiring conversation with Sarah Murrow. She reminded us that rejection is simply a turning point and that great careers are built through intentional growth and taking risks. We learned the importance of courage, whether you're navigating a global move or making the right kind of unpopular decision at work. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your wisdom on how to truly make your minutes matter. Join us next time for more insights on leading with purpose, resilience, and impact.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Make Minutes Matter. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or click the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know what you thought of today's conversation by following us on Instagram at Karen Gilhooly 1. That's Karen, Karen, Gilhooly, Gilhooly, and the number 1. Let's make every moment in your career truly matter. Have a great day.